Oh, I've got one of my friends back on the podcast today, and what the two of us do to help MSPs is perfectly complementary. I help MSPs to generate leads and get those leads onto sales discovery calls, the 15-minute calls, and Brian sort of picks up from there, taking MSPs through the sales process until you have a client. Today, we're going to talk about why MSPs so often fail with their marketing and sales efforts, and for many, it's because they just haven't got the foundations right before they start.
Hi, I'm Brian Gillette. I'm the owner of Feel Good MSP and the host of the MSP Sales Podcast.
Boom, and Brian Gillette is back on the show. It's been far too long. Thank you so much for joining here. It's awesome to be on because just a few months back, I guested on your launch of your brand new thing. It's the biggest thing that you've ever launched. It's called Foundations, and you're going to tell us a little bit about that later on in this interview. But I did want to get you on today to talk actually about Foundations, not the new, I was going to call it a training. It's not really training, not the new program that you've launched, but actually the sales and marketing foundations that MSPs need to have in place, because you and I know we work with enough MSPs to know that most MSPs don't have those foundations in place. So that's what we're going to explore in this interview. Before we do, just tell us, who are you, Brian Gillette?
Right. Wow. Where to start? I'm a complex flower, Paul. You know this. I'm a sales guy. I turned an IT sales guy back in 2017 when I discovered managed services by accident because I wanted to get into tech sales, but at the time I didn't think I was smart enough to be in SaaS sales. So I was like, well, maybe I'll do something else in tech, and I feel like tech is, the future. And I found managed services, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I love selling services. So anyway, that's my background. Is really I've been in sales for 15 plus years, and been in MSP for a decade of that.
Yeah, and for those of you watching on YouTube, and you'll see how young and beautiful Brian is, you'll wonder if he actually started his sales career when he was 7 years old. And the answer to that is, of course, yes.
Of course.
Yeah, stop flirting, Paul. It's embarrassing. So you started Feel Good MSP. It's got to be coming up for about 6 years now. It feels that kind of long.
5 years in July. Yeah, 5 years in July.
Oh, wow.
Your first interview with me was almost exactly 4 years ago.
Wow. Was it really that long?
Yeah.
I know. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy how quickly the time goes. And so you've been working one-on-one and in groups with MSPs and helping them get the sales right. And it's really interesting. I think when you came along 5-6 years ago, there were Jennifer Bleem was just, I think she just started around the same time. There was a lady called Fiona Chalice. I think Fiona still does bits and bobs in the channel, but there wasn't really anyone else properly doing sales and working with MSPs on the specific techniques and understanding the psychology of the buyer and stuff that today you and I might think is the basics, but I think the majority of MSPs still struggle with this stuff. Why do you think MSPs struggle with these getting these basics of their sales and their marketing right?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question, because in some ways the quote unquote basics, the external basics, I'll call those the tactics, they can grasp. But there's this prerequisite to being successful in sales and marketing, which is a level of understanding the way you put it was the human psychology of it. And I think that's actually where they get stuck, because anybody can hire an agency to go make cold calls for you, hire an agency to go make content for you. And those are manifestations. Those are tactics that are important in creating leads. But if you don't actually understand how to connect with another human being on an empathetic level, then your marketing is going to come across as hollow. Frankly, they're not even going to see it. They're going to scroll right by it because it can't penetrate their mental spam filter. So I think the real foundation that people miss is the psychology of selling. That is just there's no psychology in IT, right? They're different sciences. And so I think in that way, it's not like one of the romance languages where if you understand one of them, you can kind of fiddle around with the other one. It's like Chinese and Klingon. Like they're just so different that unless you've studied the psychology, then a lot of the tactics will lose they won't have any teeth, because there's no human connection in it.
Yeah, yeah. So for the average MSP that's owner operator, and it's them plus 2, 3 technicians and an admin person, so they don't yet have the resources to take on marketing people or take on salespeople, which I think is 80% of the MSP market, by the way. I guess for those people, try when you're fluent in Chinese and actually suddenly you've got to talk Klingon, but maybe you don't even know that it's called Klingon, and you don't even know that you can't quite understand, but you're not quite sure why. Would that be the right way of looking at it? That it's sometimes not even knowing you've got a problem or you're speaking a different language is the issue?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's because the agencies of the world, they are selling a promise prematurely to the MSP audience, because for a lot of reasons. But if somebody is natural at sales and then they succeed at sales, it's like if somebody wins the lottery and then you went and say, "How did you do it?" And they went, "It works. Trust the system. Liquidate your assets. Spend it all on tickets. Trust me." Like, that's awful advice, because they don't, it's not up to them that happened to them. Like, success happened to that person and they didn't cause it. But the danger is that somebody wins the lottery and then they take mental credit for picking the winning ticket, picking the winning number, right? And sometimes that happens on the agency level, where people, they are even more natural, or they're predisposed to be good at sales. And then they don't understand that they have some baseline understanding of sales that the average person doesn't start with. So they forget to teach those things. So what they do is they teach you the right things in the wrong order. So MSPs start with all the end in mind, and they go, well, I'm doing all the end play sales and marketing things, but nothing's working because they've skipped the whole foundation of it. And so you're right. They don't know. They don't know what they don't know, but they don't even know that there was a level 1, because they were sold that level 3 is where you start.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, do you think agencies do this inadvertently? Because, as you say, I don't run an agency, you don't run an agency, but we both know people who do, and some of them are very, very good. Some of them are the other end of the scale, and there's a lot that sit in the middle. My take on agencies has always been that the owner, or the person of the highest level of competence in the business, says to the MSP or any business they're working with, "Oh, you know that thing I'm good at, which might be SEO, or it might be pay-per-click." They say, "Oh, this is the route that you do it," because exactly as you've just said there, that's the thing they've had the most success with. So they're not doing it maliciously, but it's just a case of that the only route that they've seen is to do X, Y, or Z. And yet often that might not be the right solution for the MSP that they're working with.
Yeah, that's right. It's very rare that you find somebody who just has like malintent. Like, I want to rip people off. Even the people who are true con artists, they are playing mental gymnastics to justify it in their own brain, right? While they're taking advantage of people. It's usually, what I have found is it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? The Dunning-Kruger effect, for anybody who's unfamiliar, right? It's really interesting, and I'm gonna butcher it down into like 2 sound bites, which is that when you are incompetent, you aren't self-aware enough to understand that you're incompetent. So people get a baseline of education. So somebody takes a writing 101 course, and then they go, "I'm Ernest frickin' Hemingway. I'm the greatest writer of all time because I got an A in writing 101." But they don't understand 101 is there's like 1,000 more hours of education they could get, but they don't know about any of that sphere, that domain of knowledge. They've mastered a little domain of knowledge, and then they assume competence in the whole area. And then the inverse happens on the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is what happens to our MSPs, is the curse of knowledge, where you have so much information and knowledge in your head, a lot of it is now subconscious knowledge, that you forget what it's like not to have that knowledge. And so we find that true masters oftentimes have a lower they assess themselves lower than people who are brand new in terms of their overall skill level, because they know enough to know how much they don't know, versus a novice doesn't. So somebody sees success, they strike gold in one tactic, and then they go, "Oh, I'm a marketer now. I can teach marketing." And then they go, "Well, if I could do SEO, then I could do all these other things." But that's not necessarily true. So it's actually, incompetence is the right word. There's probably a more elegant way of saying that, but it's when you have a small sliver of information, you assume you know everything. And that's the danger of working with somebody who was successful one time, projects that success and says, "I can recreate this," but very often they can't recreate it. which is why we see so many agencies with so much churn, and why we talk to so many MSPs, Paul, who have lost so much money trying 5 or 6 or 7 different things.
Yes, it's really sad because by the time you have that conversation, they blaming marketing. Marketing doesn't work or sales doesn't work, which of course is nonsense. Of course it does. Yeah. I think maybe what you're looking for is unconscious and conscious incompetent. What is it? There's 4, isn't there? There's conscious competent, unconscious competent, unconscious competent. No, hang on, unconscious. You get the idea. It's those 4. Take those 2 words and put them together in the 4 variations. So some people are consciously aware of where their skill set ends, and many people are not aware. I completely agree with you on that. Let's move away from agency bashing, which is a favorite subject when you and I talk, to actually getting into those foundations. So if you take that average MSP, and we've now established they're talking Chinese, but the people they want to speak Klingon. The average MSP knows so much about technology, it's become unconscious. It's literally embedded in their soul, and that means that they've forgotten that the average Joe that they speak to doesn't have that understanding, right down to the average person doesn't really understand the cloud. It's just data's out there. They certainly don't understand ransomware. They really are many, many books behind on AI, let alone pages behind. So with all of that, when you start talking with MSPs and let's bring in your new foundations program, what are the sort of the basics and the fundamentals that the MSPs need to have in place before they start going out and doing the tactical stuff and the strategic stuff to actually generate leads and try and book appointments?
Right. I will say that the thing that nobody wants to hear, but which is the truth, is that 80 to 90, maybe even more than 90% of the ingredients you need, you already know what they are, and you might already be cooking with some of them. But the analogy I've been using that's been helpful for me in describing this is that MSPs they're mistaking sales and marketing for a list of ingredients rather than a recipe. Now, a recipe includes a list of ingredients, but what does it also include? A list of tools that you need, a series of events, the order in which you cook, you do the tasks or do the items on a recipe is critical to the success of a dish. If I'm trying to make pasta and I don't take the noodles out of the packet and I put the whole packet in the boiling water, I'll get melted plastic water. I won't get cooked noodles. But that's what people do is they go, well, I need content. Okay, so they just run out and start posting content every day, but they haven't even figured out who are you trying to sell to and what do they care about? Well, that's throwing an unopened pack of noodles in the water. The other thing is this series, again, this series is important. How much time you spend on each item is very important. Because they go, I got a cold caller, it's been 3 weeks, he hasn't made any money, I fired him. Well, that's like if you boil your noodles for 12 hours and you cook your beef for 5 seconds, you're not going to make a very good dish. The amount of time you invest in each one is important. The sequence that you do them in is very important. And the tools that you use for each one is very important. You can't cut, vegetables with a crayon. You have to have a knife. So what the mistake people make is that they fixate on one guru or one thought leader who is very good at the chopping part, and then they buy a $10,000 knife thinking now I can make this dish. But in reality, they just overinvested in one tool. And what they need to do is zoom out and look at, no, I have to do, sales and marketing is not magical. It's make yourself known, agitate or create a problem, introduce a solution, build enough trust where they buy it, and then tender payment. That's all you have to do. There's nothing new that I can teach you that you've never heard of. There's not some new social media platform that you don't know about yet that all of your prospects are hanging out on and there's no MSPs there. Like that doesn't exist. But if you focus on the true fundamentals, the true foundations of get my list of ingredients, my list of tools, and then start with step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Step 3, wait 14 days, then do this. Then we have found that when people simplify it, and as Mike Bakaich says, they don't get cute. Don't try to vibe code a CRM that's rocket powered. Like you don't need that. You could do this on Excel. You could make a $2 million a year business using Excel. You shouldn't, but you could. You know what I mean? We focus on, a poor workman uses his tools. We have no shortage of idioms here. But if you're focusing on, I just need more and more tools, it's because you're not executing the very simple steps. So the simple first step to the recipe is you need to build an ideal customer profile. And for us, that includes understand what is your value proposition to that person. What is your differentiator to that person in a way that they care about? Not like we're a Kaseya shop versus a ConnectWise shop. Obviously, they don't care. Response times is not different. There's nothing different about saying you're fast. There's nothing different about saying you don't use tech talk. There's nothing different about saying that you actually care. There's nothing different about saying that you're local, because every MSP says those 4 things. So if you're using that to make yourself different, well, I've just given you your next task. You need to go and ask yourself, why am I actually different? Why am I actually better? But when you've done that homework, which, by the way, we have a whole agent for that does it for you now in 30 minutes. It used to take us 5 weeks. When you've done that homework, all of a sudden the outbound messages, they're going to resonate with someone because you wrote it to someone, not to everyone. And then those people are more likely to reply. And then when they reply, you've been trained on what you're supposed to say back. And you know what the next action they should take is. And you know how to sell that next action to them. Not sell them the contract, but sell them the next step in the process. And make them understand why they need this discovery call, why they need the on-site consultation, why they need to sit through a presentation with you. And when you can break it down into those pieces, you realize that it's just like building a server. It's just like migrating emails. It's anything that you once didn't know how to do, but now you have an SOP for it and you could do it in your sleep because you've done it so many times.
I love that. And I think it's the breaking it down into a simple, let's not call it simple because there's still a lot of complexity in that, but it's a list of things. In fact, your recipe analogy is perfect. If we're going to pick one of those, let's pick being the chef in the kitchen. And you're right. It's not just about having the ingredients, it's knowing what to do with them and getting the timing right. I think that's absolutely beautiful. So let's finish off. Just tell us actually what's in Foundation. So what inspired you to put this new program together? And I say it's a bit of a loaded question because I've been following along with you with this over the last few months. And I know what you've put together is insane. So what inspired you to put it together? What actually is it and how do we access it?
Yeah, well, the answer, the first one why I made it was that we have another program which is pretty intensive. It's a bigger financial investment. It's a much bigger time investment. And I have found that that's the best way to have success, of course, invested a lot of time and money into something. But really, the majority of MSPs, they don't have 5 to 7 hours a week to spend with me. Like, they just don't have it. They need 15 to 25 minutes a day. And they need to be able to do it at 8 p.m. or 4 a.m., not when I'm on a live call. They need to do it when they have time to do it. So we've been setting out to answer that question for the last 2 years. How do we make something that's available just in time for the MSP, but that doesn't compromise the integrity of the education? Because I could just turn all my videos into TikToks and make them faster, but you're not going to learn anything. So it was about how do we reduce it down to the simplest stuff you have to know, so that in 15 minutes a day, you could learn in as little as 90 days how to open, how to qualify, and how to close, and how to go find that business. So it's training for sure. We have most of my learning management system is included in Foundations. I don't know. I've been making these courses for 5 years. So I don't know how many hours of education it is, but it's quite a bit. All broken down into 12 to 20 minute videos, right? And then it's the tools. So we now offer a full CRM. It's designed for outbound deal generation. It's not go high level. It's a really lo-fi, low learning curve, but complete CRM. It's a well-established CRM called Contact Science that partner with us to make a fully integrated white labeled version of it. We then help you implement the CRM. We help you migrate your data into the CRM. There's handholding, 2 calls a week with the president of the CRM named Melanie McCaleb, who will literally show you how to use it as many times as you want. And then in addition to that, we have additional tools like I mentioned the ICP agent. We have 500 plus hours of coaching calls run by me, which nobody else in the world has that much specific training data. So we are now looking to ways to augment the MSP's time and give them as much leverage as possible. So an MSP could spend 30 minutes and get 5 weeks of work done. That's what we want to set out to do. So we're building these new agents, 1 a quarter, that is designed to integrate seamlessly into the sales execution workflow. The first one is the ICP agent. It interviews you, is trained on 50 hours of calls of me interviewing people, building ICPs, and then it will build you a really exhaustive. You've seen, Paul, the document that it makes. It's pretty thorough. And we're working on a bunch of new agents now, and all sorts of different things to help you write LinkedIn posts and as many things as we can. We're looking for what's the highest friction point that's stopping somebody from executing outbound and getting leads. Okay, let's make a tool so that it will do that for them or do that much faster. It's essentially training and tools and community. That's what Foundations is.
I love it. And yeah, that ICP document, you sent a sample one to me a few months back, and I'm like, wow, how many humans have sat there and put this together? And of course, the answer is none. But the AI has been trained on, as you say, hundreds and hundreds of hours of your work. So I'm looking forward to seeing these new tools as you roll them out. Just let's finish off then, Brian. Where do we go to find out about Foundations?
Yeah, so feelgoodmsp.com/foundations. You can learn all about it. You can sign up directly there. I'll probably have a link that I'll give you a link so you can put it in the show notes or whatever. But yeah, feelgoodmsp.com. We now have all of our pricing transparent on all of our programs. Of course, we still have the accelerator for somebody who wants coaching. They want to interact with me 3 to 4 times a week on live Zoom calls. That's of course still available. But if you're a 6-figure MSP, you're the owner, and you need to get yourself 10 to 20,000 new MRR in the next 6 months just to get yourself some breathing room or hire your first SDR or whatever the case is. This is who you are, who we designed this for. You can learn all about it there and get started. It's only a 90-day commitment to begin. So you can learn all about that at feelgoodmsp.com/foundations.
For MSPs around the world, the MSP Marketing Podcast with Paul Green.